All right, folks, Mr. PiP here, and today, we're not just talking about another shiny new jet. Now, what I'm about to walk you through is the kind of story that makes defense analysts spill their coffee and quietly question everything they thought they knew about air superiority. Because the United States Air Force just did something that frankly wasn't supposed to be possible. I mean, let me ask you right out the gate. Where are you tuning in from? Texas, California, somewhere out in Europe, maybe Asia? Drop your location in the comments because wherever you are, this story affects the balance of power over your head, literally. Now here's the headline. While China and Russia were still trying to perfect their fifth-generation fighters, America had already moved on. And not just moved on, but quietly built, tested, and flown something so advanced, it makes the F-22 Raptor look like it's checking its retirement benefits. Yeah, let that sink in. We're talking about the F-47, not a concept, not a prototype sitting under a tarp somewhere. This thing has been flying for nearly 5 years in complete secrecy. And I know what you're thinking. Come on, Pippy, 5 years. Nobody noticed. Oh, people noticed something. Strange flight patterns, unusual signatures, whispers in classified briefings. But the full picture locked down tighter than a nuclear launch code. Back in March 2025, the announcement finally dropped like a bunker buster. The F-47 wasn't coming someday. It had already been dominating test skies since 2020. 5 years of classified flights. 5 years of pushing an aircraft beyond limits that until recently we thought were set in stone by physics itself. And here's where it gets interesting. Because while defense analysts were busy debating what a sixth-generation fighter might look like, sketching concepts, running simulations, companies like Boeing and Lockheed Martin were already flying experimental platforms. Not simulations, not wind tunnel guesses, actual supersonic flights. So let me throw this at you. If you were the commander in charge of designing the next fighter jet, what would you prioritize, speed or stealth? Go ahead, think about it. Because for decades, that was the trade-off. You want speed, fine. Push past Mach 2 and your aircraft starts heating up like a blowtorch. That heat lights you up on infrared sensors from miles away. Congratulations, you're fast. And visible. You want stealth, great. Now you're flying subsonic, carefully managing your profile, sacrificing raw performance to stay invisible. Pick one, that was the rule. And every serious attempt to break that rule hit the same wall. Engineers tried, designers pushed materials to the edge, but physics kept saying, nope. Until, suddenly, it didn't. Somewhere during those secret X-plane flights, those hundreds of hours, DARPA barely even acknowledged something changed. They didn't release footage. They didn't give numbers. They just said records were broken. Records. Now in the defense world, when someone says we broke records but refuses to explain which ones, that's your cue that something big just happened. Let's put this into perspective. The F-22 Raptor, still one of the most capable air dominance fighters ever built, tops out around Mach 2.25. That's impressive. The F-35 around Mach 1.6 because it's built for flexibility, not just speed. Both are masterpieces of fifth-generation design, and both are now being surpassed. The F-47, officially we're hearing Mach 2 plus, but let me translate that for you in plain English. That plus is doing a whole lot of heavy lifting. Insiders are whispering numbers that suggest Mach 2.25 as a baseline, possibly higher. But here's the kicker, and this is where things get borderline insane. It's not just about hitting those speeds, it's about maintaining them while staying stealthy. Yeah, that part right there should make you pause. Because traditionally, the moment you push into sustained supersonic flight friction builds heat across the airframe. That heat doesn't just damage materials, it creates a glowing beacon for infrared tracking systems. It's like trying to sneak through a dark room while holding a flare. So again, let me ask you, if you're running enemy air defense, which would you rather deal with, a fast target you can see or a stealthy one that's slower? Now imagine something that gives you neither option. That's the problem the F-47 presents. It doesn't pick speed or stealth. It picks both. And that, my friends, is the moment the entire game changes. Because now you've got an aircraft that can sprint into contested airspace at extreme speeds, remain nearly invisible to radar and infrared systems, strike targets, and get out before the enemy even understands what just happened. That's not an upgrade. That's a rewrite of the rules. And here's the part most people miss. The reason this program was buried so deep, even Congress barely had visibility into it, wasn't just because it was advanced. It's because it was necessary. There's a growing threat out in the Pacific, a layered defense network designed to keep U.S. forces at a distance. Long-range missiles, integrated radar systems, fighter patrols, all built around one idea: deny access. And suddenly the U.S. needed something that could ignore that entire strategy. Not counter it, ignore it. So, before we go deeper, and trust me, we're about to get into the tech that makes this possible, I want to hear from you. Do you think the U.S. still has the edge in military aviation, or are China and Russia closing the gap faster than we realize? Type your answer down below. I'm watching those comments. Because what comes next? The way they solved the heat problem, the materials, the engineering breakthroughs. That's where this story goes from impressive to straight up unbelievable. Now let's get into the part where engineers basically looked at physics, nodded politely, and then found a way around it. Because solving the speed versus stealth problem wasn't about tweaking engines or reshaping wings. That had already been pushed to the limit. No, this required a complete rethink of materials themselves. And this is where things get wild. Researchers developed a new type of ceramic-based coating. Yeah, ceramic, not the fragile stuff you're thinking about, but an advanced composite that absorbs over 90% of incoming radar energy. Let me say that again, over 90%. Now compare that to older radar-absorbent materials, polymers, specialized plastics. They worked, sure, but they had problems. Rain would degrade them, sand would scratch them, and at high speeds, they'd heat up and literally lose effectiveness mid-flight. So now imagine you're flying Mach 2+ through dense air. Friction is cranking temperatures up to insane levels. Traditional coatings would basically start failing right when you need them most. This new ceramic material, it doesn't care. It's tougher than sand, so desert environments don't chew it up. It's resistant to water, so ocean spray and rain don't degrade it. And most importantly, it keeps working under extreme heat. That's the breakthrough. That's what allows the F-47 to stay stealthy, while moving at speeds that used to expose every aircraft on the planet. So picture this, a fighter jet ripping through contested airspace at something like 1,700 miles per hour, and enemy radar systems barely registering anything meaningful. By the time they detect a ghost of a signal, the F-47 has already done its job and is heading home. Now let's talk range, because speed and stealth are great, but if you can't reach the fight, none of that matters. The F-47's combat radius, over 1,000 nautical miles. That's roughly double what the F-22 can do. Double. And if you're thinking, okay, that's nice on paper, let me translate that into real-world strategy. The Pacific Theater. China has spent years building what's called an Anti-Access Area Denial Network, A2/AD. It's basically a layered defense system designed to keep U.S. forces far away. Long-range missiles, radar, arrays, fighter bases, all positioned to create a bubble you're not supposed to penetrate. Now here comes the F-47. It can launch from places like Guam or Japan, fly deep into contested zones, carry out its mission, and return without needing tanker support in many cases. That's not just a capability boost. That's a strategic nightmare for anyone trying to keep the U.S. out. So let me throw another question at you. If you were planning defense on the other side, China for example, how would you even respond to something like that? Do you invest more in missiles, more radar, or do you try to build your own version and hope you catch up? Because right now, catching up is easier said than done. Now here's where speed becomes more than just a number. In modern air, combat speed equals energy, and energy equals advantage. An F-47 flying at Mach 2+ isn't just moving fast, it's carrying massive kinetic energy into the fight. When it launches a missile, that missile starts off with a huge boost, longer range, faster intercept, less reaction time for the target. In simple terms, whoever sees the other guy first wins faster. But there's another advantage people don't talk about enough: escape. Not every mission goes perfectly. Sometimes things go sideways. You run into something unexpected and you need to get out fast. A fighter that can sustain those speeds doesn't have to fight its way out. It can just leave. Enemy fighters, they can't catch it. Many missiles, they struggle to intercept something already moving that fast. Speed becomes defense. Now add in something called supercruise. Most jets can hit supersonic speeds using afterburners, but those things guzzle fuel and light you up on infrared like a Christmas tree. You can't sustain that for long. Supercruise means the F-47 can stay supersonic without afterburners. So now you've got a jet that can fly fast, stay stealthy, conserve fuel, and maintain that performance for most of its mission. Let me paint you a quick scenario. An F-47 takes off, climbs, and accelerates into supercruise. It crosses hundreds of miles of contested airspace without ever slowing down. It reaches its target zone, launches its weapons, and exits, all while maintaining speed and stealth. Enemy radar never gets a clean lock. Interceptors arrive too late. Missiles can't close the gap. And by the time anyone realizes what happened, the jet is already back in friendly airspace. That's not theory. That's what those 5 years of secret test flights were proving. Now, just when you think that's enough to break the game, the Air Force adds another layer. And this is where things go from impressive to borderline futuristic. The F-47 doesn't fight alone. It operates with what they call loyal wingmen, AI-controlled drones that fly alongside it into combat. Not basic drones, not remote-controlled toys. We're talking about full-on combat aircraft with their own sensors, weapons, and decision-making systems. So imagine this one F-47 piloted by a human, commanding 4, maybe 5 autonomous drones. If you were in that cockpit, how would you use them? Would you send them ahead as scouts, use them to jam radar, maybe draw enemy fire? Because that's exactly the idea. These drones spread out, creating a massive sensor network. They detect threats, confuse enemy systems, and absorb risk. If missiles get fired, the drones can intercept or take the hit instead of the pilot. The human becomes the quarterback. The AI handles the fast, moment-to-moment decisions. And suddenly one aircraft isn't just one aircraft anymore. It's an entire combat formation. Now think about what that does to the battlefield. More coverage, more targets, more confusion for the enemy, and far less risk to human pilots. So I've got to ask you, what do you think comes next? Do we see these drones getting faster, stealthier, maybe even fully autonomous strike roles? And more importantly, how do countries like China or Russia respond to this kind of system? Because at this point, we're not just talking about a better fighter jet. We're talking about a completely new way of fighting in the air. And in the next part, we're going to zoom out and look at the bigger picture speed records, global power shifts, and why this aircraft might lock in air dominance for decades. Now let's zoom out, because this is where the conversation stops being about one aircraft and starts being about global power. Everybody keeps asking the same question: did the F-47 actually break speed records? And the answer is yes, but not in the way most people think. See, when people hear speed record, they think of something like the SR-71 Blackbird screaming along at Mach 3.3. Pure speed, straight line, no compromises. But here's the thing, that aircraft was built for one purpose: go fast and gather intel. No weapons, no stealth, no dogfight capability. The F-47 is playing a completely different game. What it's achieving isn't just raw speed, it's the highest sustained speed for a stealth combat aircraft. That combination is what matters. Speed plus stealth plus full combat capability. Before this, you could pick 2 if you were lucky. Now you're getting all 3 at the same time. And that changes everything. Because it means the US didn't just improve an existing platform, it unlocked a new category of air combat altogether. Now think about what that does to countries like China and Russia. China revealed its own 6th-generation concepts not long ago. Russia has made similar claims. But while they were still showing designs and prototypes, the US was already flying demonstrators for years. That kind of head start in military tech, that's not just an advantage, it's dominance. So let me ask you this, which country do you think closes that gap first, China, Russia, or maybe someone unexpected? Drop your prediction in the comments. I'm curious where you stand. Because air superiority isn't just a buzzword, it's the foundation of modern warfare. If you control the skies, you control everything underneath. Ground forces operate freely, strikes become precise, logistics stay intact. Lose the skies, everything becomes harder, slower, riskier. And the F-47 is designed to make sure that doesn't happen. Let's take the scenario everyone keeps bringing up: the Pacific. China has built a massive defensive network designed to keep U.S. forces away from key areas like Taiwan. Layers of missiles, radar systems, fighter patrols, all working together. But the F-47 doesn't play by those rules. It can launch from Guam, push deep into contested airspace, establish control strike targets, and return without needing support in many cases. Right now, there's no other aircraft on Earth that can do that. And that's not hype, that's engineering. Now here's another piece people overlook the timeline. The first production F-47 is already being built. First flight is expected around 2028. Operational capability by 2029 to 2030. That's insanely fast. For context, the F-35 took over a decade to go from first flight to operational readiness. The F-47, it might do it in under 2 years. Why? Because the hard part of the risky part already happened during those secret test flights. The technology isn't theoretical anymore. It's been proven in the air. And Boeing, they didn't just wait around for the contract. They invested billions ahead of time, built specialized facilities, trained workers, set up production lines before the official green light even came in. That's a level of confidence you don't see unless you know your design works. So when the contract dropped in 2025, they were ready to move immediately. No delays, no hesitation. Now let's talk about what this means for the bigger picture. Because the F-47 isn't just another fighter jet, it's a statement. It says that despite everything, budget debates, global competition shifting priorities, the United States can still build something so advanced that competitors don't even fully understand it yet. And that matters, not because of aggression, but because of deterrence. The goal isn't to use this aircraft in war. The goal is to make sure no one wants to start one. If potential adversaries know that any attempt to challenge U.S. air power will be met with something they can't track, can't catch, and can't counter, they think twice. That's how you preserve stability. That's how you maintain peace through strength. Now imagine being a pilot climbing into that cockpit. You're not just flying a jet, you're carrying the most advanced combat system ever built. You know your aircraft can outrun, outmaneuver, and outthink anything else in the sky. That kind of confidence, it changes how you fight. But here's something I respect even more: the people behind it. The engineers, the test pilots, the crews who spent 5 years working in total secrecy. No headlines, no public credit, just quiet execution. That's a different kind of dedication, and it's the reason this program succeeded. Now here's one last thing to keep in mind. The F-47 we're talking about right now, that's just increment 1, meaning this isn't the final form. Future versions could push even further, more advanced systems, better integration, maybe even deeper AI control. So the question isn't just, what is the F-47? It's, what does it become next? And if you were on the other side of this equation, if you were planning against it, how would you counter something like that? Radar upgrades, hypersonic interceptors, cyber warfare. Because whatever the answer is, the clock is already ticking. The F-47 didn't just break speed records. It broke the assumption that America's edge was fading. It proved that when the right resources, talent, and urgency come together, the result isn't incremental. It's transformational. By the end of this decade, this aircraft will be operational, extending U.S. air dominance for years, maybe decades. And that's not just good news for defense analysts or aviation geeks. That's stability. That's security. That's the invisible shield most people never think about, but rely on every single day. So before you go, I want your take. Do you think this kind of technological leap keeps the world safer, or pushes competitors to escalate even faster? And which country do you think will come closest to matching it? Drop your thoughts below. If you made it this far, hit that like button, subscribe, and stick around, because we're just getting started breaking down the systems shaping the future of warfare. Stay sharp.